Bromination of an alkene. In this experiment, we will be brominating acetylbene. Start by weighing out 0.2 grams of acetylbene and 0.4 grams of pyridinium tribromide. For this, use weighing boats and spatulas. After you weigh out your solids, go to the hood, start to build your setup. For this setup, we are using a 10 ml round bottom flask and an air condenser. Don't forget to add a small stir bar into the flask and combine the air condenser with the round bottom flask. Make sure there is an O-ring between the connections. We are using a hot plate with a heat block. Again, make sure your round bottom flask sits well in the heat block and cover tightly with it to heat it homogeneously. Make sure to clamp it to a stand. Measure 2 milliliters of solvent grade, meaning 95% ethanol, in a graduated cylinder. Add this solvent into your round bottom flask. While you're adjusting your setup, make sure to rest your glassware in a large beaker so that it does not roll over. Add your acetylbene into your solvent and make sure to shake it gently to dissolve acetylbene in the solvent. Cautiously add your pyridium tribromide to the solution. Make sure to mix the pyridium tribromide into the solution properly. You may use the help of your stirring bar and your magnetic stirrer for this. After this, combine the condenser with the round bottom flask and then put it in your heating block and heat and stir for about 5 minutes. This process is called refluxing. During this process, you will see a color change from red or orange to a more yellowish color. In the meantime, you may put some ethanol into a graduated cylinder and rest it in your ice bath to have ice-cold ethanol for the future steps. After heating is completed and you see the yellowish precipitate, take your round bottom flask away from heat and let it cool to room temperature. The product will start to crystallize as the solution cools down. After it cools to room temperature, you will transfer your round bottom flask to an ice bath and continue cooling for approximately 10 minutes. After your solution is cooled down enough, you will filtrate your precipitate by vacuum filtration. The vacuum filtration setup is the same as the ones that are used in the previous experiments. You will wash the isolated solid with a small amount of ice-cold ethanol to remove any adsorbed pyridinium salts from your product. You may also wash your round bottom flask with this ethanol to get any remaining solids in the round bottom flask. Make sure to run some air through your product for a while to dry it properly. Remove the stirring bar with a clean pair of forceps. And finally, move on to take the infrared spectroscopy measurement of your product. Take a small amount of your solid product and put it on the small crystal in the sample holder section. Put a small piece of paper on your solid sample, screw the top until you feel some resistance.